Captain Kirk.
Fascinating.
I'm a doctor, not a mechanic.
Thank you, love you. Mwah.
Most illogical.
Aye, sir.
Well, that was different. Yep, lousy, but different.
Places, please, and here we go.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, bears, Caladans, and things to episode 73 of the MuppeTrek podcast. I'm Steve.
And I'm Jarman, and we're here to compare, contrast, and confer about our two favorite franchises. And what are those, Steve?
That's the Muppets and Star Trek. We've been doing one-to-one reviews of the Muppet Show and Star Trek, the original series.
And tonight we're covering the Muppet Show with special guest star Cheryl Ladd and Star Trek original series episode, That Which Survives. Ooh. And Steve, who is this Cheryl Ladd person anyways?
Well, Cheryl Ladd, she's an American actress and singer, but most people know her for being one of the original Charlie's Angels.
Ooh.
What does our audience know her from in our generation? Well, if you like made-for-TV Hallmark holiday films, you know her because that's pretty much all she does now. But most likely you know her as one of Charlie's Angels.
And apparently she took over for Farrah Fawcett. So not the original Charlie's Angels, but she took over for Farrah Fawcett when Farrah Fawcett left, apparently.
But what's she up to this week on The Muppet Show? Well, backstage, there's no real overarching plot. The closest thing is that there's a bust of Beethoven who's doing the equivalent of live tweeting the show and kind of has a running commentary on how things aren't going that well. There is a moment where Piggy visits Cheryl's dressing room. Cheryl admits she's a huge fan, specifically of her karate chops, and they practice their karate. Piggy physically assaults her employer, Kermit, and they wreck the dressing room all while singing I Love Being a Girl. But that's the closest thing to a backstage plot we get. On stage this week, Piggy starts in a tropical paradise. Link Hogthrob struggles to swing on a vine. They sing True Love before being joined by an assortment of jungle creatures. Cheryl hits the stage for the South Rampart Street Parade. She shows off her dancing chops a little bit before being joined by some floppied, full-body monsters in a Dixieland band outfit and one giant green and blue monster. Next, we visit the Swine Trek, where Julia Strangepork has invented invisibility pills. They use the opportunity to mess with Miss Piggy. Piggy takes her own pill and invisibly karate chops the crap out of both of them. Mm-hmm. Kermit is forced on stage by a gaggle of chickens. He introduces Gonzo the Great, who performs a hypnotism act wherein he hypnotizes himself to convince himself to lift 5,000 pounds. He then snaps out of it and is crushed by the weight like an accordion. It's a great Looney Tunes-esque gag.
Very much so.
Cheryl hits the stage one last time. It is in a lovely meadow with trees. She performs Sunshine on My Shoulders, joined by some charming woodland creatures and eventually an assortment of Muppets. Kermit thanks Cheryl. Gonzo is flattened like a pancake still, and that is what we call the Muppet Show. So, Jarman, what did you think of this week's episode with Cheryl Ladd?
It was kind of like a flashback to a very straightforward episode of the show. The host, Cheryl Ladd, was actually very talented. She was fun to watch. I thought she was great with the Muppets. Not a whole lot with her. Like you said, I think only two main numbers with her, I believe. But a lot of the great classic segments that we had. And my favorite was probably Cheryl Ladd and Piggy beating up the dummies to I Love Being a Girl. Because
the dummies. Yeah. That was a good backstage number. And you
know,
I'm a sucker for backstage numbers.
Exactly. And it's a good musical number that I've known from, I forgot what show it's from, but it's a classic musical number.
Don't worry, I'll get to it on music.
You will. That's right. But yeah,
and here's the best part. You're not going to remember the show.
Oh, no.
I can tell you right now. I had to look at him and go, what?
It was in a movie at some point, too. So maybe it was in an original in a musical, and then it was in a movie later on. But anyways, just it's like a regular kind of middle of the road, but good quality Muppet Show episode, in my opinion.
I agree. This feels more like a season 1 or season 2
right, exactly.
episode where they had stronger confines. This might be a situation where they had very limited time with her. We've seen guests like that where that's obviously the case. Mm-hmm. But I like that she got to show off her chops. She wasn't just in sexy outfits.
She wasn't.
Nonstop, the way that a lot of other, we'll say, sexual icon female guests have been.
They showed off her singing skills instead, her dancing skills. Like she has like a lot of other things to show off besides her Charlie's Angels, boobs.
But I agree. Besides the Swine Trek, we didn't really get any of the standards. And maybe that was missing a little bit. And I feel like that, as we progress further into the Muppet Show, is what I'm missing more and more. As they take on bigger themes and more encompassing onstage, backstage stuff, I'm finding I'm missing the standards.
Yeah. But not the houses talking to each other.
No, but we've only seen maybe a handful of Swedish Chef's Kitchens this season.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen a handful of veterinarians' hospitals.
I think At the Dance is dead.
At the Dance, we haven't seen since I think mid-season 2.
I think it's dead. Yeah, it's gone.
So good episode, not great, definitely not a top. I can tell you right now,
not a top,
but not a bottom either.
Yeah, it was fine. It was enjoyable. It was entertaining.
So music this week, True Love. This is by Cole Porter, and it was nominated for the Oscar for Best Original Song for the 1956 film High Society. South Rampart Street Parade. It was first recorded by big band Bob Crosby, who is the younger brother of the more famous Bing Crosby.
And most of Bob Crosby's records were destroyed in the great studio fire that happened back in the 50s or 60s.
Ooh,
so
hurts.
You can't find a lot of actually Bob Crosby's records anywhere. They don't exist anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
The UK spot, which I didn't mention because it wasn't in the episode we watched, but this is a song I really remember from the Muppets, so I would be remiss not to talk about it. It was right after Pigs in Space. Features Scooter singing There's a New Sound, and it's about worms, as odd as it sounds. Well, it was by this guy named Tony Borello and Tom Murray. It was a novelty song from the early 50s, and they basically wrote it because they'd written a bunch of serious stuff, but the only stuff being played on the radio was this insane crap. And they're like, we'll show them. We'll write this crazy song. I bet you they'll play it. And they did. And it ended up being their biggest hit.
And this is the UK spot that was not on Disney Plus. So
it was not on Disney Plus, but I remember this song. I used to have it on a cassette tape.
Oh my goodness.
Growing up. So when I saw it, I was like, I have to talk about it. I have to at least mention it.
That's so funny.
I Love Being a Girl from Rodgers and Hammerstein.
Right.
Their musical Flower Drum Song.
Yes. Okay. I do know that. I do know that musical. I do.
Okay. It's about a Chinese family in the turn of the century San Francisco struggling with adapting and assimilating to their new life in America.
And a weird side note here. I had been in a play recently where I had to sing a version of that song with totally different lyrics. Oh, I've got a brand new hairdo. And I had to sing it all but differently as a gay man in this play that I was in last year. It was very strange. Nice. During the pandemic. An odd time.
Sunshine on My Shoulders. It was co-written by John Denver, and he is actually the first guest of season 4, which we'll review next time.
I thought that was so weird. He sang that song, and then it's going to be he's the guest next episode. It's really weird.
So, Jarman, what did you think was the best Muppeteering moment this week?
There wasn't a lot of crazy stuff. Like you said, it was kind of a tamped down episode, but I think if I have to go with just the, impressiveness, the South Rampart Street Parade number, where just a bunch of, the human Muppets dancing around. And
I did love the floppy Muppets in the back, and they're using that black screen trick.
Right. You can
tell
they're
wearing black velvet.
Thing. Exactly. And so I think that was pretty impressive.
I got to give it to the opening number, Link Hogthrob on that vine.
Oh, yeah, that's
where
true.
Clearly a Muppet performer is sprinting underneath this vine.
Oh my God, you're right.
And then swinging back and sprinting back. That was just impressive to think of somebody like, oh God,
make it look real. That's funny.
Well, now that brings us to a very special time. We've just finished season 3 of The Muppet Show.
Yes.
So German and I were going to recap our top 3 and bottom 3 of all of the episodes so far. We're going to talk about our top and bottom from this season, and then we're going to see if anything from this season joins the best or worst of the Muppet Show overall.
Right. And I'd love to start with the bottom of this season, if that's cool with you, Steve.
Yeah, let's do it.
So what's your first bottom episode of this season?
Okay. I think we are both going to agree on this.
Okay.
Because I cannot think of another episode we have torn apart more. And that is Spike Milligan.
Yes, we agree.
Not only was it weird and eccentric, but it was offensive at multiple points and too insane to find funny.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, I would be able to even get past the insane or the offensive stuff because they give a disclaimer. I get it. Product of its time, whatever. But I couldn't understand half the things he was saying. It was like he was on coke and he was just yammering and he was sucking so fast I couldn't find any of it funny. And so I get that he was like a legend, but like it just didn't do anything for me. It was a mess, an absolute mess. Yeah.
So yeah, Spike Milligan, absolute bottom of this season.
Totally agree.
The next one I put in Chris Christopherson and Rita Coolidge.
We also agree.
If I could only put Chris Christopherson in there, I would.
Correct. I don't blame Rita as much. She was all right.
But collectively, the episode really failed.
It was like he was dreading being there. He was so bored, so weirded out. He did not want to be there. it ruined the
He's
whole
like,
episode.
oh, this is
for me.
what my life's become. What next? A vampire movie? And then that was
In 40 years. Okay.
what
I'll
happened.
do it.
Okay, so far we're 2 for 2.
Yeah. What's your third one? I'm curious.
Third one, and this one's tough because it wasn't necessarily bad. I just felt really misused.
Okay.
And that was Liberace.
Oh, okay.
Such a big, over-the-top guest, you'd think, but he wasn't in a lot of the episode.
Right.
And what he was in was just him sitting at a piano with Muppets dancing around him.
It was a missed opportunity episode.
It was a missed opportunity episode. And because of that, that really planted it at the bottom for me.
Okay, that's totally fair. But we have one different in this
Ooh,
case.
which one's yours?
Mine
I'm
is
excited.
James Coco.
Okay, I can see it. I can see it.
He was just backstage for most of the entire episode, commenting on each act they were doing. And it's like, I don't care about this guy at all. He's not showing off any of his talent. This is boring. This is not. And the Muppets did fine. So I'm not blaming the Muppets for this episode. I'm blaming James Coco for this episode.
Okay.
But it was just not an exciting. It was just really weird. Like, it's like he purposely didn't want to do an act on his own. It just failed for me on all accounts. Yeah.
I can absolutely get on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's recap. Let's recap our worst for season 1 and 2, and then does anything join that illustrious list?
So what's on your list of the worst of all time?
So my worst as of the end of last season, I've got Florence Henderson.
Ah, yes.
Bob Hope, and Rich Little. Florence Henderson could have been on any show. Bob Hope clearly didn't have time to do this show. And Rich Little was just so bad, and you mix that with an equivalently bad episode, and it just turns terrible.
He was the impressionist, right?
He was the impressionist who nailed 2 of the 23 impressions he did.
And mine's I think it's Bob Bergen, right? Bergen,
Edgar Bergen.
Edgar Bergen, right? And Bob Hope and Rich Little. So we share Bob Hope and Rich Little, the 2 of us. But mine's Edgar Bergen, and yours is Florence Henderson.
Just to remind people, Jarman was just incensed, just outraged by Edgar Bergen because Jarman was into ventriloquism growing up, and he was so ashamed.
It's like meeting one of your idols, and he just fails you entirely.
Well, you felt that way.
Yes,
definitely. So I've got some replacements.
Okay,
I can tell you right now. So joining the bottom, I'm going to say Spike Milligan knocks out Florence Henderson.
Okay.
Florence Henderson was boring and could have been anything, but Spike Milligan was just flat out offensive and incomprehensible. And at best confusing. Like at best he was confusing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Bob Hope and Rich Little both maintain their spots.
Okay. For me, neither Spike Milligan was still, that episode was so weird and just strange and disturbing that it kept my interest enough to not put it in the worst list.
Really?
James
Man.
Coco was just boring. Chris Christopherson and Rita Coolidge could tell didn't want to be there, but they were talented at least. So I'm stuck at still Edgar Bergen, Bob Hope, and Rich Little has not changed. My worst has not changed.
So your worst, so nothing from season 3 made it to the bottom.
Nothing. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's impressive. That's impressive. He was Jarman. If you ever get a chance to go back and listen, Jarman was outraged that episode. Outraged.
My ventriloquist side was outraged.
All right, now let's get away from the bad and let's talk about the good this season.
Yeah, let's lift it up a little bit.
So, well, let's go back. Let's see if we have any commonalities. So this season, best, I said Alice Cooper.
Oh, that was not on my list, but I appreciate that entirely.
A great themed episode. Great music. Alice got to really show his range and do some slower, nicer things. And then School's Out. A lot of cool, spooky effects that were outside of what the Muppets normally did.
That's
Just
true.
overall, a very stretching and good episode.
I love that. Yeah. My first one is Raquel Welch.
Okay.
Because not only just gorgeous, I love Raquel Welch. I mean, my pubescent self loved her as well. But she was. I learned how just much more talented and funny and great with the Muppets that she was. She was just a wonderful, all around solid host. She was one of my best episodes of the season, I think.
Nice. Next up, best this season, I've got Harry Belafonte.
Oh, not one of mine.
Between
either, but great.
his gravitas, the song "Turn the World Around," which was really created in collaboration with Jim, and it was even one of Jim's favorites. His drum battle with with Animal is just great.
That was great.
Him performing Deo, maybe for the first time on TV. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe. Once again, I think I covered that episode. It might not have been the first time, but they say it is. Which is great and made for an all-around impressive episode.
That's a great choice. My second choice is Gilda Radner. I think she was a quintessential Muppet guest star. She's a Muppet herself. I think she just did a tremendous job on that show, and she just belongs on the Muppet Show. I think it was uplifting for me. I missed her. I saw her face on there. I was like, oh my God, Gilda Radner, this is fantastic. So it was just a great episode for me.
I have an honorable mention section that I was going to do after, and Gilda is in there.
Nice.
She's not one of my top 3, but man, what a good episode. The other one in there is Danny Kaye.
That's my third
mentions. Too. Oh, that's one of my honorable mentions.
Oh, honorable mentions. Okay, never mind. I gave away my stuff too early.
He was almost there. But it's good we agree.
So what's your third?
My third one, and this is one where I feel like the host really matched the show. Mix that with a good backstage plot that covers the entire show and stretches on stage, and you got the Roger Miller episode, where the cast is gripped by cluckitis and chickens eventually take over the entire show. Between his wacky demeanor, his strange songs, everything really fit and worked with what the Muppets already did.
Right. I would say he's on my honorable mention list as well, because that was just like, even though I didn't know him from Adam and he was just like a, crazy weird dude, it just made the whole episode very interesting and funny all along. And my last would be Danny Kaye. Because
great episode.
Also, I'm a little biased. I grew up with him. I watched the TCM or AMC movies with him in there all the time. He was hilarious as a kid, and just seeing him on there, he did a great job with the Swedish Chef and everything. That whole segment where he played his uncle, and they're both not speaking Swedish, but he's like basically a classic era Muppet himself. I thought he was a great addition to the cast. And my other honorable mention that almost made the list was the Lynn Redgrave episode, because I love the whole Robin Hood theme that went throughout.
That was great.
And I also Roy Rogers and oh my God, what's her name?
And Dale Evans.
I just like the episodes themselves, not necessarily the hosts. That's why I didn't make my best list, because I like these episodes that had themes that went throughout. Like even the chicken thing, and then also the Western thing, and then the Robin Hood thing. It's just, I like these episodes that did that. So it's very cool that season 3 kind of went outside the comfort zone in those areas. But yeah, but those are my mentions.
And I will say that for the Danny Kaye episode, the reason it almost made my top, it just didn't quite, was because his performance of Inchworm is probably my favorite backstage musical number.
So cute.
And I love backstage musical numbers.
Oh yeah, and it was
almost enough to take it over the top. Almost.
We had 3 totally different best ones. That's great though. I like that.
With a few similar honorable mentions.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about, do any of these unthrown our existing top 3?
Mm-hmm. Well, you first, my friend.
I've got some swap outs, I'm going to say.
Okay. All right.
For me, the Harry Belafonte episode, with its deep meaning to him and Jim, the creativity, the playfulness with the Muppets, he is going to take the long-held spot of Peter Ustinov from season 1. Peter Ustinov was a Muppet, but this episode clearly connected with Harry Belafonte in a way that makes it special.
I can see that. Yeah.
What about you?
That's your only change?
Oh, no, I've got more changes. I wasn't sure if we were going back and forth.
Say what your original 3 were first.
Okay, I did. I thought. Didn't I?
I don't think so.
I'm crazy.
No.
Pete Ustinov.
Okay.
Zero Mostel.
Okay.
And Elton John.
Yeah, you did not say that yet. Okay, so that's
okay.
That's your
Pete
original
Ustinov,
3.
Zero Mostel, Elton John.
Gotcha.
Were my original 3.
So Ustinov's gone, knocking him out with Harry Belafonte.
Alice Cooper is taking Elton John's spot.
Uh-huh.
Elton John took the spot from Paul Williams because of just the overall musicality of the episode. And I feel like between the theming and the amount of musicality Alice brought, it dethrones Elton John.
Very fair. I like that.
But I will say Zero Mostel holds his spot in the top 3.
I like we're getting some differences here, because my original best were, oh my God, did I not write them down?
You have Zero Mostel.
Thank you.
I can tell you.
Yep, there you go. Say what it was. Yeah.
Peter Ustinov and Bruce Forsyth.
That's right. So the only change I'm making which is very different from Steve's. I am getting rid of Zero Mostel.
Whoa.
And putting Gilda Radner right there.
I would say that is a very fair trade.
Zero Mostel was fantastic, but I just felt like Gilda Radner embodies the soul of the Muppets and what they meant to be and that kind of entertainment. And she just did a fantastic job.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the super glue bit where she comes out and does the musical number with more and more stuff sticking to her.
I wrote that one down, too. It's like my favorite thing she did.
It's just spectacular. It's just spectacular.
Yes. And I still think Peter Ustinov was a big surprise. Maybe he'll just stick there so long because he was like the first guy I saw that was just an amazing host with the show. And Bruce Forsyth was hilarious. So they're still there, but it's Gilda Radner, Peter Ustinov, and Bruce Forsyth on the list now.
All right. So our new top three, my new top three, Harry Belafonte, Alice Cooper, and Zero Mostel. Jarman's top three. What was yours again?
Gilda Radner, Peter Ustinov, and Bruce Forsyth.
And the ones for you to avoid, Spike Milligan, which is just terrible. Bob Hope and Rich Little hold their spots for me.
And me, it's Edgar Bergen, Bob Hope, and Rich Little, those bastards.
Those assholes all keep their bottom spots.
Yes, they do. They're trying to rest in their laurels of nothing, and they just failed miserably. But now we get into Star Trek, I believe.
We're not that far from the end of Star Trek. I'm excited to recap that, too.
Muppet Show will keep going on, but Star Trek, the original series, will be over. And we'll tell you guys what will be next soon.
Ooh.
But right now we're going on to the episode That Which Survives. So we have the Enterprise somehow discovering a planet whose young age doesn't match up to its atmosphere and biology. So Kirk, Bones, and Sulu and a random geologist beam down to investigate. But as they are beaming down, a random woman appears in the transporter room and then touches the transporter chief and kills him instantly. The landing party arrives at the mystery planet, but are immediately shook by tremors, and at the same time, the Enterprise is knocked 990 light years away, but safely. Spock orders that the ship go back to the planet as fast as they can, and Dr. Mbenga says that the transporter chief died of cellular disruption, which is very weird. Meanwhile, the landing party splits up to explore the planet to find food and water because they can see the Enterprise is gone, and they don't know how long they're going to be there. And the geologist guy encounters the same woman who was in the transporter room, and she says, "I am for you," and then touches him, and he also dies. And then Kirk, Sulu, and Bones find his dead body and try to make a grave for him using a phaser, and that helps them discover that the planet is actually truly artificial, which is strange. So the same woman then appears again, now saying she is for Sulu, and tries to touch him, but only brushes his shoulder before Kirk and Bones intervene. But her touches do nothing to them, however, but it makes, Sulu very injured. Apparently she can only be lethal to the person she is particularly after for some reason. But back in the Enterprise, the woman appears there again, kills one of the engineers, and then the ship begins to accelerate uncontrollably. And this will eventually lead to the Enterprise's destruction in 15 minutes unless they can do something about it. So Scotty goes deep into the ship to perform a dangerous operation on the ship's engine to stop it, and does so just in time, just barely before the time runs out. But back on the planet, the woman appears again, tries to attack Kirk, but Sulu and Bones protect him. They question her, and she reveals that she is Losira, the station commander, and she is programmed to protect the planet at all costs from intruders. Sulu, Kirk, and Bones finally find the control center for the planet, and then 3 copies of Losira appear, each one of them for one of them to kill them each in good time. And just then Spock appears with a security officer, and they blow up the mainframe of the computer protecting the planet. A video then plays of the human version of Losira from a long time ago, and she explains that her people traveled here long ago, but a disease killed all the station's personnel, and that this computer system has been protecting the planet from intruders ever since. Bones figures out that the same disease must have wiped out all of her people that ever arrived at this planet over the years. And they get back to the Enterprise, and all is fine. And that's the end of the episode. So, Steve, what did you think of this episode? Please tell me.
Oh, man. So, some things I like. I like the Spock-Scotty duo that we got to see. Bones was kind of there, but once again, I feel like in general, DeForest Kelley has kind of gotten the shaft this season.
You are so right. Yes, he has.
Like, he shows up for 2 minutes and then just disappears. They they talked to a different, I just like that they gave them opportunity to give another doctor something to do.
Right.
I I couldn't tell if the opening was smart or lazy. They kind of started in the middle with like opening exposition. But he's like, they recounted all the facts they discovered up to that point, but they did it for the camera. So I was like, this is either brilliant writing or really lazy writing. And I can't figure out which one it is.
Brilliant.
Things I maybe struggled with a little bit. We haven't seen Spock played this, I'll say unwieldingly logical since like season 1, where he's so logical, it almost comes off as stupid.
Yeah, or naive, and yeah, exactly.
I almost compared it to like Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy, where he doesn't understand metaphors.
Nothing goes over my head.
I'm too fast, I would catch it. Exactly. It felt like that, and it wasn't the Spock that's like grown and expanded and become a little bit more human.
You could definitely tell this is a very
Spock.
different writer suddenly writing this episode, for sure.
I like that there was an entire scene where Kirk shot a gun at the ground to do science investigation. That was good and bad. I got a good laugh out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you get the super powerful being that can kill anybody with a touch, but they can like confuse it with basic math and like body blocking somehow. That was so, don't let it. And then there were 3 and they're like, oh, we can't block all of them.
Now we can't walk in circles anymore.
We can't. Oh, and they like shuffle mildly back and forth to confuse them. It was so goofy. And then I just thought it's so cliche, and it wasn't a red shirt this time. Mm-hmm. It was a blue shirt, the other doctor that went down to the planet with them. But as soon as they're like, Sulu, Bones, you're with me. Random doctor. And I went, oh, he
go that
die.
way. Away from
he's
us.
Not even wearing a red shirt. He gonna die. And then one thing I really dug was the practical effect when they get down to the planet and there's the earthquake. They were on some sort of moving stage. On the Enterprise, they were clearly shaking the camera like normal, but the set that Shatner and them were on was actually moving, and that was really impressive to me.
That's nice, yeah.
What's your take? I thought this was kind of middle for me.
The one reason I liked it is because it was very sciencey, very Star Trek-y. They were really trying to solve a mystery with science and a geologist and studying their environment. That felt very different from a lot of episodes we've seen where it's just been strange space creature magic and we couldn't do any kind of science. This felt more science-based and used a lot of science terminology, and I liked a lot of these Spock trying to figure out what was going on from his end. And so there's a lot of good writing in that regard. Not necessarily writing as far as the conceit of the story, but writing as far as sciencey, Star Trek-y kind of stuff, which I liked. But it was a bit slow. An interesting story, but at the same time, they've done this before. A civilization leaving behind a computer to tell future people coming to the planet what's going on. That's happened before on Star Trek, I feel like, already. But yeah, just kind of a middling episode, but not terrible. Like I like some of the moments. And even though Spock was, way too backward to where he was before in season 1.
Way too Spocky.
Yeah, it still was really funny. There was a lot of great moments in the writing for that, which I enjoyed. But you're right. It was like, strangely, he was regressing back to a previous form of Spock.
Right, he was season 1 Spock all of a sudden.
Exactly.
We're like, he was like the butt of every joke from being so logical that he comes off as dumb.
Like he didn't understand things at all. It's like you've been around here for years now. You understand what's going on. So
you get the joke, you asshole.
So yeah, very middling. Yeah, not going to make our top of season 3, I think.
Yeah, fair.
But for trivia for this week, we have Lieutenant Radha, which is a very briefly seen character taking the helm, where Chekhov would normally sit, is both the first explicitly Hindu character and the first Enterprise helmswoman to appear in Star Trek.
And she had a bigger role than even a lot of the one-shotty kind of characters. Like, she had way more lines than a lot.
That's true. That's true. And this is the second and final appearance of Dr. Mbenga, the African-American doctor who's there. I'm chewing a piece of ice, excuse me. That guy, he's actually appearing, which I've not seen yet, to my much chagrin, The Strange New Worlds, which is the story of Pike with Spock and the original crew of the Enterprise. Apparently, Dr. Mbenga was the head doctor before Bones appeared on the Enterprise. So that's at least the canon they're going with now. So this character who's only in 2 episodes of the original series is now a main character on Strange New Worlds, the series now on Paramount Plus.
Oh, good for that guy.
Yeah, so he's going to be a big character there. This is another occasion where network decency standards had a big effect on the costumes worn by women on the show, because the beautiful Locira, costume had a strategic flap that was covering her navel, of all things.
Oh, it did. You're right. It was like a weird cutout kind of thing.
So they've had the most revealing costumes in the world on this show. I could not believe the things they got away with in the 60s on this show, but yet they can't show her navel. So you can see boobs, you can see side boob, you can see legs up almost to her crotch, but you cannot see her navel due to decency standards in the 1960s. So ridiculous. This was cool because I didn't realize, I recognized her, but couldn't tell from where. Locira in this episode is played by Lee Merriweather, who, if you guys are listeners to the Play on Nerds podcast, we reviewed recently the Batman movie from 1966, I believe. And she played Catwoman in that movie.
Oh, I didn't put that together.
So she was not.
And the Riddler was in the last episode.
Exactly. And
crazy.
The Catwoman from the TV show was not Lee Merriweather, but she wasn't available for this movie filming. So Lee Merriweather came in to play Catwoman just for that movie. And we reviewed that movie. And that's this actress, Locira, in this episode, which is pretty
awesome.
Cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right. So, Steve, what are the Trek Connection Muppet connections this week?
Well, Cheryl Ladd, mostly known for Charlie's Angels. Well, one episode she was in featured a young and hunky Jonathan Frakes, who would later go on to play William Riker on Star Trek The Next Generation.
Heck yeah.
And the 1987 Golden Globes were co-hosted by none other than Cheryl Ladd and William Shatner.
Oh, my goodness.
A direct connect.
That is a direct connect.
But they were basically the same episode, right?
Oh, I mean, come on. Totally.
I found no less than one similarity.
Oh my God. I found 2 similarities in these episodes.
Oh my God. You go first.
Locira, she can disappear at will. Just like Link Hogthrob and Dr. Strangepork in the Pigs in Space segment. They can also disappear by taking is that your one?
Yeah. Both feature invisible forces on a starship. The disappearing and reappearing woman on the Enterprise and Lincoln Julius when messing with Piggy.
That's hilarious. So my other one is Cheryl Ladd and Piggy show how women can kick some ass in the I Enjoy Being a Girl segment. That's just true. As Locira shows that she can kick ass by just touching someone.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, totally.
I see what you did there.
Same thing. Oh God, what's that noise?
Transporter malfunction.
All right, this is part of the show where we transport one character from one episode to the other and vice versa. So what do you got for us this week, Steve?
Well, Muppets Trek this week, I've got bringing over Dr. Julius Strangepork to take the place of Spock. He would be just as over the top as Spock was this week.
That's true. For Muppets to Star Trek, I have Cheryl Ladd to replace Locira. She's got some great moves and training with Charlie's Angels, so she'd be much more of a threat than the original Locira.
That's true. Plus, she knows how to karate chop.
Exactly. That's important.
Trek to Muppets this week, I've got bringing over Sulu to take the role of Link, swinging vine to vine, because I feel like Sulu deserved better this week.
Yeah, he could have had more. I agree.
And when I think of him at his best, it's him shirtless with like a rapier pretending to be a space pirate from whatever episode that was.
Yes, the naked time or the naked now.
The naked time.
Star Trek to Muppets, I have Locira to transfer over to become Gonzo, so she could just swirl up and disappear when the weight falls on top of her during that one segment for Gonzo the Great.
Yeah, she just snaps and like a little black door opens up and she zips through it.
And she zips through it and the weight just falls down and she's totally safe. Yep, that happens.
I get down with that.
All right. So that brings us to the end of episode 73 of the MuppeTrek podcast.
Join us next time for The Muppet Show with special guest John Denver.
And original series episode, The Lights of Zatar.
So from the lovers, the dreamers, and us.
Live long and prosper, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the MuppeTrek podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media on Facebook and Twitter.
Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform.
This podcast has been brought to you by A Play on Nerds.